If somebody could give me a thumbs up in the comments that they can hear me, I'd be ever so grateful. Anyone, say what you see. Sound? Give me a thumbs up in the comments. So if you can hear this, I've just done my intro, but it turns out my microphone wasn't working. So that's one of my favorite things, right? Like doing things twice and I'm repeating myself for about 3 minutes. So we're going to start again, guys, just to set the tone for the evening. Anyone in the comments say, can you hear me? Kind of tempted just to get on with it, but until somebody says, yes, I can hear you, I don't really want to do that. Okay, I've had someone confirm they can hear me. What a amazing start, ladies and gentlemen, to Tenconi Talks. Tonight's episode 14. What a fantastic start. That's 6 minutes of you not being able to hear me. Let's start again. Thanks be to God. Blessed be the holy and undivided Trinity, now and forevermore. Amen. Peace be with you, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 14 of Tenconi Talks, live and direct from Tenconi Towers, as always, discussing what Christian nationalism means and our mission to save Britain and what you can do to write your name into the history books and to be part of that history. I am not so honored and blessed to be with Father Calvin Robinson, our lead spokesman. He is not here. And we're also doing this on a Friday night as a one-off. He should be back with me on Wednesday next week. Now, tonight's main segment is focused on, is splitting the vote real? That's, is splitting the vote real? We will be discussing that. But first, we are going to begin with the not so quick fire round, where we discuss just how crazy and disturbing and confusing the world, especially Britain, is becoming. That's where I left off. We now should have sound. Here we go. My response to a tweet put up by Politics UK. The government is planning to cut its climate aid to poor countries such as Pakistan from 11.6 billion to 9 billion over the next 5 years. So true to my word, we're going for the not so quick fire round. My response: a UKIP government would end all foreign aid. Doesn't get much more quick fire than that. So the patriots, the voters, deserve to know what they're getting when they're back UKIP. And when I'm at street level, fielding many questions, which it's an honor to do so and a pleasure, I'm saying it as it is. No nonsense, no flip-flopping, no anything whatsoever. If you are in a position to hold power in this country in a first past the post system, you can execute your policies. That is it. That's it. So that's the quick fire round part, guys. A UKIP government would end all foreign aid. So the number that we've worked out is something like 75 billion in terms of wastage. So that's the UKIP number. I don't remember exactly what it is right now, but I think it's 75 billion. It's something. If you add up all the net zero nonsense and the eco-Nazi nonsense and the DIE and the woke, the wastage, etc., if you add it all up, it's a really, really big number. And then take that, like Labour are saying they're going to reduce it from 11.6 billion to 9 billion over the next 5 years. If they announced that they were going to reduce it by 2.6 billion overnight, we'd all go, nice, but you're still spending 9 billion. And a lot of these countries that we give foreign aid to have space programs. So we give foreign aid to countries where that government spends money, taxpayer money, donor money, whatever, money that's fundraised, however, on space programs. Any country that can have a space program doesn't get foreign aid from Britain. Simple as that. So moving on. Again, you need to know what you're voting for, guys. A UKIP government would end all foreign aid. Next up, this is from GB Politics, I think. I'll have a look at what goes on in the comments as well this week. Usual stuff. There's already somebody saying that you can't be a Christian and hold our political views. It's just really, really sad when I see stuff like that, because they could be a devout Christian, and to say that and to be a devout Christian, you'd have to be mentally ill. So that makes me very sad, because mental illness is sad. And if they're not a devout Christian and they don't know anything about the church teachings about scripture and verse, chapter and verse, etc., then they're just talking out of line, which is well, it's lies, deceit, the offense of calumny, for example. You're just talking out of line, basically. So I just think it's really, really sad. I was at an event this afternoon which was all about showcasing via a documentary how there's a mass cover-up of institutionalized paedophilia in this country, and the patriots and the socially conservative and the Christian nationalists and those that follow us, and we have a huge following and a huge support base. They all say that we should get justice for the girl. You can't unrape a girl, a girl or a boy. You can't unrape someone. But what you can do is stop it. You can stop it, and you do that via the culture. You do that by the culture you have. You do that via justice system, deterrence, etc. But then also in the situation that we're in, you can't undo it. All you can do is provide justice, and that's as Christian as it gets. It really is. But it's very sad. But I'll keep an eye on the comments, guys, because we get stuff like that, and it's important to address when it's mental health related. We have to be kind to these people, but also these people are very likely going to hinder us when we take power and when we implement our policies. They're going to hinder us. They're going to interfere with us. So we can pray for these people, but a lot of them, there's no contrition in their heart. They're not sorry at all. The rape genocide of Britain is real, and a lot of these people say no, it's not. Well, it is. It is. We know it is. Testimonies alone, we know it is. So GB Politics, next up. From today, alcohol duty is increasing, raising the price of a pint by around 2p. This means that for a £6.50 pint, pubs will only make 28p profit. So it's really simple. Whenever this happens, the right will say something in response to our pub culture, and the left generally will criticize the right by saying the numbers are all minuscule and basically who cares, etc., etc. It's really simple. We absolutely foster at UKIP as a society, as a culture. On the right, we absolutely foster pub culture, and that's my answer. It's simple. The reality is that the pubs are being squeezed out of the market. Pub landlords, landladies, etc., they're all being squeezed. This is what you do, right? No shots fired, usual stuff, death by 1,000 cuts. You just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, and then eventually what you do is you look at it and you go, right, water costs this much, gas costs this much, electric costs this much, right? It's called a profit and loss. You look at all of this and you go, hang on a minute, and now that's reducing as well. Every ounce counts, guys, in the P&L, in the business. That's just the way that it is. And especially if you've already re-engineered things so many times and you've done the special offers and the buy two get the third one free, whatever, etc. Once you've tried everything, you do start to lose momentum. You do start to lose the impetus, etc. And I think there is just a designated campaign to erode our pubs. There just is, and that's not it's difficult. Like left-wing people, socialists, Marxists, they go to pubs, right? I mean, I don't know, maybe they don't, I don't know, but they do, right? So it's kind of difficult to explain. But what I do know is that, and the reason why I brought this particular policy point up is that if you head to the UKIP manifesto and you go to the bit about tax, the alcohol duty piece, where they're going, why do we have Why are we paying tax on everything? Like, you pay tax on absolutely everything, but there's this thing called income tax, and then there's this thing called VAT, right? That's not vodka and tonic. That's value added tax. Like, all of this stuff, for those of you who know your history with regards to taxation, I mean, it's pretty boring, but there are some landmark moments you need to understand. And then you'll know about the poll tax riots, and there was a window tax, which is why some windows in London, when you're going down the streets, there's windows, but then it's clearly a window, but it's been bricked up because the government wanted to tax people. You've got more windows, you've got a bigger house, you're more well off. So the government, it literally wants to tax oxygen, right? That's what the government wants to do, and it's so corrupt, and it's so evil. And of course, the left love taxes because the liberals don't want communism, but they'll, generally speaking, they'll side with the socialists, and the socialists are the communist bedfellows. So the whole thing between centre and communist is problematic. But the communists want total equity. They want the state to control absolutely everything, which on their theory is Marxism, which is that if you control the means of production, then you control the country by definition. Well, that's obviously warped when you've got a London-centric economy and the vast majority of your GDP, or an enormous amount of it, is to do with services rather than products, and that particular area is pretty much sewn up. It's pretty much controlled. I'm talking about banking now. It's pretty much controlled. How do you penetrate? The markets, capitalism, the markets control it, etc. So how do you penetrate that? So they went for culture. That's what the communists, the long march through the institutions, they keep modifying their approach. And that the idea is to go for the culture. They can't win militarily. These people are violent, socialists, communists. They're political thugs. They're violent in orientation. They have to be, etc. So the left, when this comes up about taxation, the left are all for it, and the right, generally speaking, go, why? Why are we being taxed into oblivion? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why is my money going towards government initiatives that I don't agree with? Now, we can all agree on certain things going into the pot, like policing, for example, potentially, like intelligence, potentially. But when all of these institutions become captured, we've got to ask, this is the problem, right? So you're all up for paying tax, and you're all up for putting into the pot if it's done sensibly, like anything in life. And then you get these bad people that come along to do really bad things with the pot, and then everyone goes, why am I paying tax? So in the manifesto, we're quite clear about this. Why don't we stop the rot, save all of this money? Why don't we stop the rot, save all this money, and then get rid of all this nonsense tax? It's a pretty simple, basic equation, guys, and that's detailed quite explicitly in the UKIP manifesto under the bit about taxation. What fuel duty, alcohol duty? What do you mean? Why is everything taxed? There's an income tax, right? Right. Okay, fine. Moving on. Not so quick fire round. So you know what you're getting when you vote back, when you support, when you vote for UKIP, ladies and gentlemen. Some of this stuff is random tonight, guys. I'm not going to lie, but as always, it's the attention grabbing stuff. Now, this next story we're going to do quite quickly because I know there's a lot of people that have the devil's plan is to divide us, right? That's fundamentally what the devil's interested in. So a lot of people won't even care about this, but this is really important. France, generally speaking, is now a failed state, and it's a failed state because of the importation of Islam. And Islam, obviously, the hardcore fanatics, the Islamists, they want Sharia law. I'm not talking about the moderates. I don't care about what they do or don't want. They either assimilate or they don't. But the radicals, they always spoil it for everyone. So look, France is now saying, I can't believe I'm even saying this, a politician has called for the seal of confession to be banned. Now, for those of you that don't care, you can switch off right now. It's absolutely fine. But for the 1.5 billion that do care, the seal of confession, this is absolutely sacrosanct. There are 7 sacraments, not 6. There are 7. If you remove one of the sacraments, and again, you're Catholic, you believe in the 7 sacraments. The sacraments come from the church. God left us a church, and this is not something that you can interfere with ever. And the state in France, apparently, a politician apparently is saying, look, again, regardless of whether there's any traction on this or not. By the way, Catholic Arena, guys, follow them on social media. They do great work. Again, highlighting issues, etc. But the fact that that's even on the cards, and then you think about, well, in Britain, look at what we've had to go through and what we've put up with, etc. on any number of controversial topics. All of a sudden, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Imagine if this subject came up in Britain. What on earth? So again, why would the left care about the seal of confession? Why would the communists care about the seal of confession? Why would the government care about this? Why would you, if the seal of confession is so non-important, then why is it even an issue? So again, you're saying, okay, fine, well, it's in France. Yeah, okay, fine, that's okay, fine. But what if this came to Britain? What if that happened? What if that actually happened and that was a conversation, right? Like Islamophobia laws. That's on the card. That's on the cards now. That's on the table now. Digital ID not necessarily going anywhere. Look at what happened during COVID. Like this, all this is unthinkable. Lockdowns, what have you, etc. All of this is unthinkable. So the quick fire round, guys. That's disturbing. If the left think that the Catholic Church and Catholicism is so irrelevant, and the government and the establishment, like, they don't care. Why is this being brought up? The reason why I fight and the reason why I represent the Patriots and have chosen to be a leader is because I believe the end goal is all an attack on Christianity. So we can talk about men and women, we can talk about gender roles, we can talk about far left in orientation, globalist agendas, etc. We can talk about all these things, but I think the end goal is the destruction of Holy Mother Church. And for those of you that know, your a lot of people who join the faith, they denounce the church. It's a new freedom movement called the born again movement. I'm not saying born again people denounce the church, by the way, but I've seen it an awful lot. There's a new freedom movement, which is all based on communism because it's based on the hippie period and it's all narcissism. And these people say, I absolutely reject the church. I have a personal relationship with God. Now, why would the seal of confession be of an issue at all if the church is non-existent? And it doesn't matter. I've got a personal relationship with God. I don't need to go to church. I don't need to follow the sacraments. You know those things called rules? I don't need to follow those. You know those things that have been laid out for over 2,000 years? I don't need to follow those. They don't mean anything. I've got a personal relationship with Jesus, and I'm going to completely disregard the rules. I'm going to completely disregard what has been said about, again, just a couple of themes here: apostolic succession, for example, the forgiveness of sins. But again, I'll let you guys thrash it out amongst yourselves. Is there a deliberate attempt through division, through the creation of denominations, which are man-made, man-focused? Is there an attempt to essentially destroy the church? Because you can't destroy the faith. People have always, look at the martyrs. You can't destroy that. You either have it or you don't. And a lot of people get martyred for that. And we'll find out what happens in Britain. I'm not talking about faith. This is forever. This is eternal. If you have it, you have it. And there are rules about who those people that have faith, etc. But is there an attempt, before we move on, to essentially attack the church? For all those people outside of the 1.5 billion that understand that it is Holy Mother Church and that God left us a church, then the book came. Outside of those 1.5 billion, is it possible? I'm asking you to, again, open-minded. Is it possible that I think the communist plot, the long march through the institutions, when they gave up essentially economically and they gave up militarily because they can't fight, they decided to come for our culture. So what is it about our culture that they're coming for? Traditional family values, Catholic. Private property. Again, the church is very clear about this. Very clear about private property and the right to own private property. Traditional gender roles, the patriarch and the matriarch, and how they combine beautifully as represented by our Blessed Mother Mary and Joseph as well. So I'd ask you all to think. It's a deep one, but obviously quick fire round, not so quick fire round. I'd ask you all to think about that. Is it possible that if we were all part of one church, the instruction about being one body and the churches are the vines, if we were all part of the same church, we would be unified, correct? And did it not used to be like that? You were always going to have societal problems, etc. But I think this is the devil's plan, is it not? Is to divide us. So moving on, but that story meant I had to bring up the the battle, the fight, the true fight, the true battle that we're in, I think, is and it links to our final segment this evening, is division. That's what the devil wants. He wants division. Um, I get it all. I get it all the time. I hear it all the time about people's own preference and how they want to conduct themselves with regard to their religion and their politics, as opposed to actually accepting that there are rules. It's what they want. Well, if everybody does that, then why on earth would we ever be united? So I'm just trying to get everybody to think, and then obviously to, you can argue the point, and you can do that on social media. I'm never not at street level, so you can call me out on it if you want. But as soon as we unite, then we've got a chance of taking the country back. But my question to you, patriots, is under what are we uniting? Because it hasn't worked so far. There's something missing. I believe that we must unite, and I think I know what's missing. Next up, this was from GB News. Again, a lot of these stories all link. Girls banned from wearing skirts at a school for equality reasons. Anyone wants to go on Google and find out the school, let me know, chuck it in the comments. We will be very brief on this. Obviously, the end point here is to create an androgynous society, right? You guys all know that, yeah? So if we get a couple of mental lefties in the comments, they'll say that it's a non-entity. And this is what the left do. They look to undermine you. This is their subversive tactic. Is the number one tactic is to undermine you. Well, I actually think that it's so appallingly disgusting, and it's so insidious, because it's like a non-story, right? So a school's decided to ban girls from wearing skirts, but when you look past that, again, we won't spend too long on it because there's bigger fish to fry, but it is just so evil. It's so evil because we want our men masculine and we want our women feminine. Now, that's obviously going to really upset a lot of people, like the butch lesbians, for example. Like they don't want to be called feminine, for example. And I think that a lot of the time that they are actually attracted to feminine females. So I think we can all agree we want our men masculine and we want our women feminine. And then the big question comes up about, well, what is feminine, for example? Well, the world that I envision and what I want for Britain is that our youth, so our Gen Zs and our Gen Alphas, because there is a Christian revival going on, what I want is for our boys and our men to be able to procreate and have families. But you can't do that if you can't meet someone. I want them to be able to meet someone, and we want them married and having children as early as possible, because again, we're doing mass deportations when we take power. That's of the suspected 5 million illegals, but we also have, as you know by now, we've introduced remigration. Well, we haven't just introduced it. Obviously, it's core policy, right? So there's going to be an awful lot of people going home. You with me, patriots? An awful lot of people going home. And we're killing, for every 100 born, 48, say we. Secular liberals, for every 100 born, 48 are being killed, babies. So we've got to start having children, haven't we? We're at 1.4 in terms of the birth rate. 1.4. Yeah, that is right. 1.4. 1.9 is our survival. So we want men wanting to court a girl, and then they get married, and then they have children, right? Like jump in the comments, guys. Am I wrong? I think I'm right. I know I'm right. But you can't do that if men and women are at war. You can't do that if men and women don't get on. You can't do that if either man or women simply, I don't know, don't get on for whatever reason, or they've got different values, different culture. Like nothing about that works. So that's what I thought when I saw this story. And again, I'm forced to link all of this to all the previous points that I've made about family, about culture, about the devil, the devil's plan, etc., to divide us. Why would a school for the reasons of equality, ban girls from being girls. It's so insidious, and I'm pretty sure the vast majority of fathers in this situation, again, the divorce rates are what, 50%. So that means that half the fathers aren't actually there; they're with another family that they've made, but maybe they still have a hand in how the girls are raised. I mean, I don't know, but again, that's problematic, isn't it? So I'm wondering how many people could actually. I'm wondering how many people could actually endorse this type of suggestion about banning girls from wearing skirts. I don't understand. Like, where would the outrage come from? Like, where would the backlash and the fire come from to say no? It's not about clothing. It's about protecting masculinity. It's about protecting femininity. It's about embracing and fostering traditional gender roles. That's 100%. Unashamedly, we say this as well. But if you say that to a progressive or someone suffering from narcissistic personality disorder, you're in for a world of it. I mean, obviously, if you can handle yourself in terms of debates, no problem. Of course, 100%. Say it again. We 100% want to foster traditional gender roles. Yeah, absolutely. We want our young men and women happy, or striving to be happy. Duty first, happiness second. The happiness shouldn't be the end goal. You're wasting your time. Duty first, happiness second. Living ordered lives who have families. This is the most meaning that we can possibly achieve. Thanks be to God, right? That's beautiful. So, not a quick fire round. I am keeping an eye on the comments, guys. Some people, I think, are being bullies to other people. And I don't like that. I really don't like that. So we're keeping an eye on that. Now, this is the good stuff. Now, what year are we in? Quick glance at the calendar. 2026. 6 years ago, nearly, in the June, if memory serves, of 2020, when we were all locked up, these far left rats got together in a place called Bristol, and they all coordinated and mobilized, which the right can do as well, to be fair, but it was coordinated and it was mobilized. And the left, we know, are very well funded because they always have placards, and those placards are always on sticks. Someone's got to do all of that. No one's doing all this stuff for free. So we know the deal. They all decided during the height of the BLM riots, which again was left-wing thugs across the world using political violence as their main tool to be seen and heard. Now, ordinarily, a government, a police force, an intelligence agency within that nation, within that country, would clamp down incredibly hard, especially if they're far left extremists as well. Domestic terrorists, that's far left extremists, communists are domestic terrorists. But they didn't. Avon and Somerset police stood around the Colston Plinth statue, in Bristol. Avon and Somerset police stood around whilst the media was getting wind of this and people were traveling down there. No one knew it was breaking news. Of course, you don't know. You don't know about it until you've heard about it. And these guys, they wrapped rope or whatever they did around the statue, etc. And these guys pulled. I've been to the Plinth an awful lot, obviously for activism and for media purposes since 2020. And they pulled this great big iron statue down, boom, onto the concrete, crash, smack. One of the biggest acts of violent disorder, premeditated violent disorder, Britain has ever seen. And Avon and Somerset police were told to stand down and that they shouldn't get involved because it would spark community tensions, because it wouldn't go down very well, because basically they knew the Avon and Somerset police, again, under a command, under a leader, I forget the mayor's name, is John someone, he'll come back to me in a minute. But this is the whole point of hierarchy and power, right? Someone gave the order and said, stand down. So it turns out when you hold power and you're in certain positions, you do have that power. And it makes me think maybe we should do that with central government. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, guys. We're going to come on to talk about that tonight. I think I'm right. In the end, I think 2021, although I don't remember the month, the Bristol Four, which is what the media dubbed them, they were all in jail. They were all in court for violent disorder, whatever, etc., etc. And you're thinking, wait, 4 of them got pinched. 4. But there were hundreds of them. You guys remember the scenes, right? There were hundreds of them. So first of all, there's 4 in the dock, right? That's completely unacceptable. When the government gets its hands on patriots, they use violent disorder. That's what they use. It's not a fray. The crime, it's not a crime. It's nonsense. You need 3 people to be there. 2 plus 1. You need 3 people to be there, and someone else needs to feel fear. And then if you get found guilty of that, 99% of the time people confess to it. But if you're not guilty to it, which I would always recommend doing, don't ever plead guilty to violent disorder, no matter what offers on the table. Don't ever do it, ever. Again, this is generic, right? Obviously not legal advice, but generically. And then the jury, for example, finds them guilty. Or you just needed 3 people and for someone in the proximity to feel fear. Look at what those communists did and how they behaved. You remember, guys, 4 were in the dock. Absolutely mind-blowing. It's terrifying. And now moving on, they all got off. Do you remember? They all got off. The Bristol 4, memory serves. Pretty much. They all got off, right? Fact check. The years go by so quickly. I'm pretty sure I remember. 4, they got off. Now, this is bad, guys. This is really, really bad. The videos that we've seen circulating recently, there's a company that is alleged to be making weapon in Britain. I forget the name of it now. There's a company in Britain allegedly which makes weapons, and we sell them to the IDF, right? Britain makes weapons, right? And we also earn a lot of money from it, right? So we have all these ways in Britain, we have all these ways of making money, right? Selling weapons is one of the ways we make money. And these far left extremists, Charlotte Head, Samuel Corner, Leona Cameo, Fatima Rajwani, Zoe Rogers, Jordan Devlin, these far left extremists have broken in to this factory. And I'm sure you've all seen the footage whereby one of the police, presumably the police officers, get called. We've just seen the footage, right? And apparently one of these people, I think it was a woman, she's got the sledgehammer, right? And apparently the police officer, her report, I believe it was a female officer, is that this sledgehammer was used against the police officer. Now, point being, aggravated burglary, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. How we've seen the footage of them in the compound. They're in the building. They've broken in. So an aggravated burglary, you're going to jail, like most likely. This is serious. Criminal damage, no verdict across the board. Okay, fine. So it's burglary, but they didn't break anything getting in. It can't be both, surely, right? Because then it becomes trespassing. I mean, in terms of the use of the word aggravated burglary. Violent disorder, no verdict, no verdict, no verdict. On Charlotte, Samuel, and Leona, no verdict. What do you mean no verdict? So this is they've all pleaded. So guys, bear with me. They've all pleaded not guilty, right? Because the left, as stupid as they are, they're also not stupid in certain ways. They've all pleaded not guilty, right? You don't plead guilty, right? Because why would I plead guilty to violent disorder? No verdict. So jury of 12, right? No verdict. This is what I'm talking about, guys. It either is violent disorder, so-called, or it's not. Now, if it's not guilty, we know the deal, right? Like we've seen the footage, guys. The girl's got a sledgehammer. Remember the rules? I'm sure a lot of you know this. If there's 3 of you and the circumstances are aggravating and there's nothing mitigating, you've broken in, you're somewhere you shouldn't be. All of that is aggravating, not mitigating. And one of them's got a sledgehammer. Why would you have that's a lethal weapon? Again, aggravating. And this police officer, who apparently I think is now going to sue, basically, she's going to take action herself because she's outraged, which is the next part of the story, because we need more police officers coming forward, right? When we have two-tier justice, we need police officers do. So we'll come on to that. The other three, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. But you need three. There's six. Qualifies, aggravating, qualifies, nothing mitigating, violent disorder. You're going in the bin. Whether it's 6 months, 12 months, if you don't have form and you get violent disorder, you might go in for a year, you're out in 6 months, give or take an inch, etc. Violent disorder, if memory serves, it was in the late 80s that this was brought in, and it was brought in to curb football hooliganism. For those of you that don't know, the background to this incredibly dangerous charge, which the CPS, obviously, as you know, for a long time now, CPS has controlled everything with regards to prosecuting. So with violent disorder, it was brought in to curb hooliganism. Nothing about this was aimed at anything left wing. Nothing about this was aimed at communists or socialists with subversive intent on our Christian land and our values and our way of life. It was only ever aimed, typically the guys at football, they tend to be patriotic. Can we all agree on that? The guys at football, the football scene, they tend to be patriotic, right? This was aimed at curbing that. So I have nothing to say about that. Don't endorse hooliganism, that scene. Don't endorse it. Not for me. What's the point? Right. This is an example of how a law got introduced so that one day it could be, because why not? They just chucked it in. But why not? It's not used against the left. We have the most classic juxtaposition right now where patriots are constantly being arrested and charged and going to jail for violent disorder very, very quickly as well through the system. But when lefty activists, Just Stop Oil, gluing themselves to the street, you name it, causing all kinds of chaos, all kinds of mayhem, people to get out of their cars, people just trying to get to work, they're already aggravated, they don't need it. Remember, you just need three, and somebody needs to feel fear. That's violent disorder. That's it. These people, 6 of them, 3, got it. Weapons, got it. Aggravating, got it. Broken in, got it. They're all off. Now imagine, patriots, imagine now 6, you and 5 others, socially conservative, probably, like, just think of 6 activists. Think of me, think of Tommy, I don't know, whoever else, Maya Tusi, doesn't matter. Dealer's choice. Just think of 6 socially conservative out there activists breaking in, holding sledgehammers and assaulting police officers all together now. How long would we go away for? And it would be instantaneous as well. Now, I know, thank you, Elbit Systems. Elbit Systems. Thank you, Bob. So we'll move on. Not so quick fire round. This is what we're up against, guys. Like that's it. You know, I don't think that this is why I fight, right? Because the intricacies and the details and the numbers about everything, we deal with that all the time, and we do that all the time, no problem. But do you really need to worry about the nitty-gritty details when look at the 2-tier situation in this country? Look at the propaganda of fear campaign to silence you and to shut you up and to keep you in your box if you're socially conservative and on the right. Now, more importantly, and this is it for me as far as I'm concerned. For the last 6 years, since the BLM riots, which makes you think, was it all ordained? Was it all pre-orchestrated, right? Like this is with the George Floyd thing. For the last 6 years, we have seen time and time again, Western governments take a very, very gentle approach to how they treat left-wing terrorists. We've seen how they've taken a very gentle approach, a very, very forgiving approach to Marxists and communists who use thuggery, intimidation, and political violence as their main method of bringing about change. That means, patriots, that what we have seen for at least the last 6 years, nothing's changed with the left's MO, true, but in the last 6 years, we have actually genuinely seen the legitimization of political violence by the left, starting with the BLM riots, all justified in the name of freedom, all justified in the name of equality, all justified in the name of diversity. If you're a left-wing terrorist, but you're there, free Palestine. If you're there, fascist scum off our street. If you've got a board and you've got the chant and you're with the Unholy Alliance, you can pretty much do whatever you like, guys. You do whatever you like. It's proven. It's tried and tested. And we see, again, the juxtaposition with the Patriots and how they're treated just by being there. Remember the rules. You were there was 3 of you, someone else felt fear, violent disorder, in the bin you go. That's how they do it. Any punches thrown? No. Any kicks? No. Anyone got hurt? No. This is why we fight, Patriots. Now let's move on. Zach Polanski. Zach Polanski, and who's leader of the Greens, who has currently 4 MPs, who's contesting Gorton and Denton right now, the by-election happening on Thursday the 26th. Zach Polanski's organization, the Green Party, which started in the late 70s, someone fact-check that, has got 40 plus years of history, much like UKIP. They've got over 100,000 members. In fact, I think it's over 150,000 members, which is an awful lot of funding. They also produce GoFundMes for the candidates, 500 deposit, and et cetera, et cetera. We all know that Middle Britain, the geography teachers, they're not quite Marxist, but you know the people I'm talking about. They're generally liberal and generally secular. Again, probably support the Greens. We've seen this over and over again. I think when I was campaigning in Crowthorne, an area that I know very, very well, quite wealthy, affluent area, and the vast majority, there was a stat. I was campaigning there last summer. I don't remember the stat, but apparently it was one of those constituencies that was voting heavily Green, because the Greens marketing is that they're going to save the countryside. They're going to save planet Earth. And it's not just secularists and liberals, but there's a certain mindset that falls for that level of absolute nonsense, lies and deceit. And it's generally the narcissist, the personality disorder, the infringements on the synapses, shall we say, guys. There's something not right there. They don't understand the wider policies or the importance of understanding. I can't even say it without just. The Greens have got policies. Zach Polanski as leader and putting in a guy called, correct me if I'm wrong, but deputy leaders Mothin Ali, who is definitely your Islam first, second, and third type. Nothing moderate about the guy. Okay. Wait a minute. A gay Jew is teaming up with a guy who does the Allah Akbar chanting. I think I've got my stats right there. The Police Federation of England. I'll bring it up. The Police Federation of England have written to Zach Polanski, leader of the Green Party, with its 150,000 members and a lot of funding and direct access to question time and the media and you name it. This piece of shit has basically done a Zara Sultana. And with regards to these far left extremists breaking and entering and then committing one of the most egregious acts of violent disorder, blatant as well, and all of this would have been caught on camera, that have got off. He's promoted them, same way Zara Sultana, leader or deputy leader with Corbyn of your party. They're a non-entity. They're not to be worried about for now, but the Greens are going to come on to talk about that. They've written to him, quote, "We've written to Zach Polanski following his comments on recent Elbit protest verdicts, welcoming outcomes while failing to acknowledge a police officer being seriously injured matters. Empathy for those harmed in the line of duty should never be optional." So if I got a letter, because obviously you guys can see on the screen there, they've written to him, it's a tweet, but so it's a tweet that's gone viral, and you get that letter, that's the police saying, watch it, mate. Seriously, watch it. So again, leader of the Greens, 40-year history party-wise, potentially on track to deliver quite the verdict in 2029 with huge amounts of funding, and a guy that has endless media sensationalism and access to things like, I don't know, Question Time by the BBC, is 1 minute in a gay club. You guys saw the video on the Sunday night. Of course, it was on a Sunday as well. And then the next minute, I just so unpalatable. I just don't like it at all. And then the next minute, he's now been written to saying, what the hell do you think you're doing? An officer was seriously injured here, and you have praised. But again, he's party leader, right? So can you imagine if I said anything like that? So what I'm saying to you guys is, and I'm building up to our main segment tonight now, these communists, and be under no illusion, they are communists. They have become so emboldened, so very brazen, that they basically have right, guys. My sound, my mic got muted again. I really don't understand how it does that, but it does it. So hopefully we're back in the room now. Hopefully we are back in the room. I will wait for somebody just to acknowledge that we're back, and I will keep an eye on that little sound, that little icon that tells me I've got a working mic. Yeah, so we're probably good. So it's good to take the minute there. I think getting very aggravated at that particular segment. We are going to move on now that I've teed this up, guys. We are going to we are going to move on. We're going to try to. So I think I've made my point explicitly, and I'm now going to link that to tonight's main segment. Is splitting the vote real? You with me, guys? Is splitting the vote real? We hear this all the time. Don't do that, you'll split the vote. Don't do this, you'll split the vote. Split the vote. Is it real? Is splitting the vote real? Now, I want you all to consider what I'm about to tell you, bearing in mind the length of detail I've just gone into, to once again confirm that far left extremism, thuggery, and legitimized political violence is the enemy with which we face with regards to the normalization and resurgence of the Green Party. Don't worry about your party. Don't worry about Zoltana. Don't worry about Corbyn And don't worry about the Workers' Party. That's George Galloway's outfit. Don't worry about Galloway, and don't worry about the Workers' Party. I think it's Workers' Party of Great Britain. Don't worry about them. A lot of these fringe parties on the left and the right, they've got a few donors, they've got a few quid coming in, they've got a few people that sponsor this and that, and they just keep it going. Now, your party, that don't worry about Workers' Party with Galloway. It's nonsense. Your party with Zoltana and Corbyn, obviously, the unholy alliance politically has come unstuck, hasn't it? It's realized you can't have Islamo-fascism and radical trans lobby, and we're comrades, and the Islamists are like, no, we're not. And the gay pride thing as well. So it's an absolute disaster. And the absolute arrogance of Zoltana, I can't remember whether I think she was kicked out of Labour. I don't know whether she left or I don't remember. I know it was last year. I don't remember the exact story, but the arrogance of Zoltana and Corbyn to be like, yeah, we can start your party and we can have the Islamists and the homosexuals and the trans and we can have the lefties and we can have them all in this melting pot. Idiots. But your party, we're watching them. The Greens with 4 MPs, it's like Reform. Like Reform and the Greens are very similar in terms of what we're about to talk about now, guys. The momentum behind the Greens, the funding, the media sensationalism, the direction of travel, the attraction of the youth, and the scooping up of the Labour votes, right, puts the Greens in pole position to act incredibly aggressively throughout the United Kingdom. So you can see parallels there, can't you? Whereas we are saying very loudly and very proudly at UKIP, we are gonna contest the general election. We are going to return a majority. We are going to take the country back. But what we don't have is a crystal ball. And there are things that can happen between now and then. Like, I don't know, the creation of another right-wing party, which isn't for tonight, but this is all part of it, guys. So take the case of Gorton and Denton. The Greens are saying we're gonna do the business here. Reform have drafted in their superstar candidate. Those are the facts. That's what's happened. So media sensationalism, funding, spotlight, by-elections. Everyone knows that there's a huge amount of hype, etc., etc. A huge amount of hype. So again, ignore all that. I understand that. But this is politics. We're here to win seats. I understand that. So just ignore that for a second and just focus on the fact that it's a by-election. As it stands, Advance UK are putting in a guy we all know and like. Nick Buckley's a great guy. Do I know him personally? I know Nick, but like he couldn't vouch for me at that extent. I can't vouch for him at that extent. But he's liked. The man's a campaigner. He's put the hard yards in. He's liked. Right. Is splitting the vote real? So 2 things. Number 1, is it possible, and I ask you this, Patriots, to consider this first. Is it possible in Runcorn last year, Sarah Ponchin won by 6 votes? Do you remember that? 6 votes. Britain is completely fractured, completely divided. There's everything to play for. She won by 6 votes. In the general election of 2024 summer, we know that Labour split the Reform split the vote with Labour, i.e. if Reform didn't exist and it was just the Tories, we know that happened in X number of constituencies. I forget the number now, but it was a lot. I think it was somewhere between 50 and 60 constituencies where the numbers suggested that if you looked at who voted for Tories and Reform, there was a split and Labour got in. Now I'm going to come on to talk to the sycophants that refuse to believe that splitting of the vote is something real. I'm going to put all this together for everyone. Let's focus on Gorton and Denton. Is it possible that Reform rolls out their superstar candidate? Advance rolls out their superstar candidate. Now, you've got to remember, everyone who's part of Advance is likely to be a disgruntled Reform member, but also in relationships, you can fall in and out of love. So anything that goes to Advance may well be someone who's severed from Reform, but it also may well be someone who's very much still with Reform or playing both sides or has forgiveness in their heart for Nigel. So bear with me. Is it possible at the ballot box that you could have 500, let's just use the ease of numbers, 500 people vote Advance, 500 people vote Reform? if advance didn't exist, is it possible that those 500 people, in terms of their political knowledge, being registered to vote, eligible, is it possible that they, if advance didn't exist, bear with me, those 500 who were voters, by the way, again, this is very important, they'd vote reform. Then you argue, but the Tories are now standing a candidate. Okay, fine. So maybe 200 vote for Tory. Let's say there's no reform and there's no advance. And then they all just went to vote Tory. Well, that's predicated on the fact that they want to vote Tory. Well, I mean, who's voting Tory? Well, Liberals are. So we know the Tories, I forget the name of their candidate. We know that they're going to stand someone. So you've got this situation whereby it used to be just blue, red, yellow, give or take an inch. And if you were socially conservative, you vote Tories, right? And they had power and they were safe. That's why they're so arrogant, right? And now that's changed, right? Because you've got teal, you've got purple, UKIP, and you're back on the scene, thanks be to God, and you've got advance. So what I want you to do, Patriots, is I want you to consider that what I'm saying holds weight. I want you to consider, is splitting the vote real? If you do the numbers and take the election of Sarah Ponchin, 6 votes, if memory serves, in Runcorn, Britain's fractured, divided, you still with me? There's everything to play for. And that's why in the first past the post system, you go all in and go, right, well, we're going to stand, we're going to do it. Now imagine that the vote did indeed get split and Zach Polanski's candidate, a woman called Hannah, imagine, and they picked her for her optics. She's young, she's a girl, she's a plumber. She's literally the walking, talking embodiment of the hipster generation, like in an AI image. There's a reason why people roll out these people. You with me, guys? Is it possible that all of your disgruntled reform voters who are now advanced at the ballot box go, I don't like Nigel, I'm with Ben, but I just know that reform and Nigel are going to win, therefore I won't vote for advance. And they'll see Nick Buckley and Matt Goodwin's name, you with me so far, and in the ballot box they'll go reform. Now, there are political pundits that do this all the time around general election season, and you guys know the math on all this stuff. You could drive yourself insane working out what the right thing to do is. And as a voter, just talking about as a voter now, what the best thing to do in a first past the post system is. When it comes to the inertia and the mindset of the socially conservative voter, patriot voter, and they are looking at a potential green, yellow, red alliance, because remember, in first past the post, you don't have proportional representation. But there are only so many seats. A bit like what happened with Nick Clegg and David Cameron, the blue-yellow alliance in 2011 or whenever it was, etc. Guys, this is a very real possibility that red, yellow, and green could unite. Now, at the moment, under Labour, the most amount of deportations, have you all seen the news today? The most amount of deportations, I think it's 55,000 or something like that. Again, lots of numbers today. But under Labour, the most amount of deportations have happened. Breaking news, right? Fact check somebody, jump in the comments. So arguably then, the Patriots are rooting more for Labour with regard to deportations than they are the Tories, because that's what we want. We want mass deportations. The problem with Labour is you get the two-tier policing and the fact that you've got to look at Starmer's face, which is just unpalatable because the guy I don't think that he's got the country's best interests at heart. And the main driver for that, of course, is two-tier policing and two-tier justice. So imagine now, we're all thinking right now, if you could flick a switch and get a Tory government back in right now, because we all want Starmer out and we all want Labour gone, right? So if you could flick a switch and have a blue Tory government right now that were just as shit as before, but who were maybe going to keep up Labour's level of detentions and deportations, every patriot would take that option right now. You might lie about it. Every patriot would take that option right now. My question to you, patriots, voters, is what exactly do you think we have at the bargaining table right now on the socially conservative right, where I am doing everything within my power to unite? And of course, there is only one way to do that now. I've been explicitly clear about that. It's through our faith. But in the case of Gorton and Denton, it's not the hysteria that we're buying into. It's the principle. You have a rising Green Party, which could well, again, various people have stepped back, Workers' Party, and Zara Sultana waited for my tweet, my statement, and then copied and pasted. She advocated the Greens, whereas the Workers' Party didn't. They just said, we're not standing anyone. That's useless. Well, what's the point? But if you are saying to the patriots, guys, we can actually unify over this to stop a communist from gaining power, that has got to go straight, surely, to the heart and mind of the nation, does it not? Let's explore this further. And there's a certain order that I need to present these images in, guys. Now that was probably about a 10-minute breakdown, specifically why Gorton and Denton is so important. Not because Gorton and Denton is important, not because by-elections are important. I mean, Gorton and Denton is important to its constituents, obviously. Everywhere in Britain is important. But we must focus on the issue here. My tweet: Britain needs to wake up and fast. The communist plot is to legitimize political violence in the name of freedom until they get their way. I'll remind you all that guys like Peter Lynch, God rest his soul, wasn't so lucky. It's not all, you can't just go, oh, violent disorder, I'll go inside for 6 months and then I come back out again. It takes lives and it costs people their lives and their marriages. The actual socially conservative right currently holds no power in Britain whatsoever. That's true, by the way. The communists, however, do. If you're part of the Green Party, are we honestly going to say that they're not communists? If you're part of the Green, I'm not talking about the Reds or the Yellows. That's different. Lots of liberalism, lots of socialism, just a mess. But the Greens, come on, the 4 MPs, someone fact check that for me because I keep saying 4. The actual socially conservative right currently holds no power in Britain whatsoever. We have no leverage. We have nothing. There's still an enormous momentum behind reform. They're all still holding a good thought for Nigel and reform because they're playing the long game, apparently. The communists, however, do. They do have power. You can't argue that the Tories are extremists. They're not. They're wets. You can't argue that reform, and I think they're up to 8 now. These people aren't. They might be stupid. They might be inept. They might be corrupt. They might be liberal, but they're not extremists. We have a communist presence in Parliament. We have a far left presence without proportional representation, guys, in Parliament. So if you are not supporting, I'll finish my tweet, supporting UKIP pushes us closer and closer to the detention and remigration of communists. They have all got to go. So, patriots, spread the word, share this when it goes up on socials. This is the mindset that we need to enter into in Britain. We have nothing at the moment, guys. We are fighting. If someone could just mention in the comments that we're back, guys. Looking good, though. Looking good. Just so I know that I'm not just wasting my time now. Just let me know. So the 10-minute dissection that 10 minutes ish. This is the main segment tonight, guys. However long it was, I want the mindset of the Patriots to change to something realistic. Okay. Every time a new party is formed, that is divisive, correct? That's a statement. Every time a new party gets formed, that's divisive. If Rupert Lowe creates a new party, the vast majority of diehard reform supporters, branch chairmans, and standing candidates, PPCs, are unlikely to defect. Some will. That's called leakage. That happens. But the vast majority of people that are elected councillors, that are making inroads, that have spent years campaigning and doing the hard yards, they're going to stay with Team Reform. We have no leverage on the right. The communists do. So in the case of Gorton and Denton, and stop me if I'm not making sense, jump in the comments. It is the perfect example to show how collaboration can keep a communist from getting into power, and indeed a what would become an elected official. and adding to the Greens in Parliament, whilst Labour founders and are in a complete mess. The communists now see their opening. So we all want to go for glory. We want a touchdown. We want to win. Hang on a minute. Again, on the battlefield, guns blazing, and then there's this Red Army coming up going, you guys can fire off that way all you like. You can fight that way all you like. But I'm telling you now, we're going to take you out. What do you do, patriots? Do you carry on firing this way at whatever the target is? Or do you send half the troops to send the message back to this invading army over here? Now, it's not difficult to understand these premises and what I'm talking about here. You're always going to get haters, guys. You're always going to get naysayers. You're always going to get people. They just want to hate. Vitriolic hatred. That's just what they want to do. And that is very, very sad. And yes, it's true. We should pray for these people. But hopefully that makes some sense tonight, guys, with the main thrust of tonight's segment. It is very possible to split the vote. That doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't stand candidates. Of course, that's your choice to do. As a party, as leader, of course it is. And we are obviously going to be contesting the general election, and we're building everything possible so that even candidates don't have to pay the 500 quid for their deposit, right? Like that, things are tight. No one's got spare cash. So we're working so hard to make this possible. But the case of Gorton and Denton is a perfect example of how, if you have schisms with political ideologies and with political parties, Advance UK is a schism from Reform. Someone's going to rise through the ranks at Advance and it's going to fall out with Ben or whoever the leader is of Advance. And then they'll create their own party. Guys, I promise you, the schisms won't end. They will keep going. And then I want you to come back to the ballot box with me on Thursday, the 26th of February in Gorton and Denton. Come back with me. Now you've got this party, UKIP, Advance, Reform, Tories. Meanwhile, the left potentially will galvanize around the Greens, right? The winning horse on the left, they perceive to be Polanski's Green Party, correct? So they will know, well, if we get in there, then we can get it. If we try to get in that way, that might work, etc. I do worry so much about the grim realities with regards to the dynamics of splitting votes in a first past the post system. Now, I want to close up on this point and link it to where we were 2 years ago, coming up to 2 years ago at the general election in the summer. The reason why I deputy leader, interim leader, became leader is because I want a Christian nationalist option in the United Kingdom. The Tories are never going to do that. Nigel's never going to do that. And no one else is ever going to do it. And that's for lots of reasons. Beggars belief. But they're ultimately not going to do it. And I knew that. So I knew that I had to do that. If there had have been a viable Christian nationalist option running in Britain, then things maybe would have been different. But again, there hasn't been. There isn't, there wasn't, and there hasn't been. Well, that's problematic then, isn't it? I mean, there was nothing that had any kind of sway or power whatsoever that was Christian nationalist in orientation. So that earns the right to stand candidates. That earns the right to fight for the patriots, for the unborn, for our elderly, for our disabled. That fights to get justice. That stands to fight for justice for the victims involved in the rape genocide of Britain. All bets are off and all is fair in love and war in the first past the post system. But had there been a Christian nationalist organization which could actually stand and fight, this would have changed everything. And I think it's what the patriots were waiting for. So there is no splitting of the votes for UKIP. We have very clear water between us and Reform. And I don't care about the creation of new parties. I'm absolutely done. All that does is serve to confuse and to demoralize the patriots. Because again, go back to my example with Gorton and Denton. Reform rolls out their superstar. Advance rolls out their superstar. UKIP rolls out its superstar. Somebody talk me through what happens next, guys. what happens next. Now, I just want to bring this to your attention quickly. There was a I wasn't actually going to put this up, but there was a tweet pretty much as I opened my phone earlier on. I've been in the field all day and signal's been very limited. And the first graphic to come up, the first tweet to come up was by Darren Grimes. And I'm sure you guys know Darren's got a big he's elected councillor, I think, with Reform last year. And he's got a big social media profile. So I'm going to bring that up now just to tie this together. It was the first. Yeah, okay, fine. It was the first tweet, but I could have easily found a different one. Yeah, well, if this lets me. And there's been a by-election either today or recently. I honestly don't know the location. I don't know the name of it. I've never been there before. And he's put up because he's shown the stats, you know, when the votes come in. And then what you do is you go, right, well, if Reform and Tory was one vote, then it would have won. But as a split, Labour won. See if I can get this up. So I just want to say to you guys that the people that say that they completely reject the conversation around splitting the vote, I generally find that, I think this might be it. I generally find that they just don't want to have the conversation. They just don't want to have it. Like, go for gold, go for glory. It's fine. Absolutely. I've already said that. Absolutely. That's what we're going to do. Absolutely. All's fair in love and war. But there's just, it's so short-sighted and so ill-informed and immature to say there is no unholy alliance threat. There is no far left threat. We're on the front foot in Britain. Go for glory, hang the consequences. It's so strategically and tactically dangerous, but it's so easy for them, the advocates of there's no splitting of the vote. What are you talking about? It's so easy to say these words. Armchair pundits. That's not the real world. That's not how it works. We're not on the front foot. The communists have got the funding, the media spotlight. They're aggressive in orientation. And they've got this enormous momentum, which derives from street level, which comes from trade union funded money. So the trade unions, I'll bring the stats up for you guys, but the trade unions bring in, it's something like, if you work out what their pot is annually, it works out about 4 million quid a day. So the trade unions will spend money on whatever they spend money on. So the net pot is about 4 million quid a day. That's what the trade unions have. The people that control the money for the trade unions, that's what they have to play with daily. So not all of that goes into funding activism. But if we had access to their P&L, we would be able to decipher how much of it went into activism. Out of the 4 million quid a day, let's say, I don't know, let's just say 10% for ease. And you're going to turn around and say, there's no way that it's that much. All right. Okay, fine. So if it's 10%, let's say halve it. So 5%, you're still talking about a potential, again, you say 5%, it's nowhere near 5%, right? And it wouldn't work like that either. But guys, these proportions are all accurate. The trade union pot total is about 4 million quid a day to spend on whatever. And we know that left wing and far left extremism is funded by the pot of the trade union collective, the 4 million a day. So even if it was 3% or 4%, it's still an enormous amount of money, and the right has no funding whatsoever, apart from your private billionaires and your private millionaires. So if you take the last 20 to 25 minutes, guys, I've unpacked it quite clearly, but I'm asking you to consider your position. And I'm asking you to consider the realities when it comes to who actually holds power at the moment. And are we fighting for gold? Are we going for glory? Or are we doing that and we're trying to stop the communists? And if you're still somebody that doesn't whenever I post about communists, the far left are in there trying to ridicule me because they don't want their cover blown. Communism is the enemy. The communists, this is the enemy. This is evil, guys. And I think there's still a lot of people on the socially conservative right who potentially ignore this. And you'll never hear Nigel talk about communism, far left extremism ever. Why not? Why aren't they called out? And there's plenty of other socially conservative right-wing leaders, so-called, that I could call out right now as well. Why don't they ever call out communism and the communists? This is what you're backing when you back UKIP. This is what you're supporting when you support UKIP. This is what you're voting for when you vote UKIP. To end the far left reign of terror in this country. I've mentioned funding. I've mentioned activism. I've mentioned political violence, thuggery. I've mentioned what the far left bring to Britain. Their subversive intent aside should be enough. Let's go back to the tweet from Darren and then we'll close up, guys. He says, vote Conservative, get Labour. So what he means is reform the Clevedon South. That's it. Clevedon South, not been there myself. North Somerset, council by-election result. Labour, 29%. Reform, 27.7%. Conservative, 18.6%. Now, if you're looking at that and you're a Conservative voter and you saw enough of those stats, which is why I brought up the general election in 2024, as a Conservative, bearing in mind the defections, wouldn't you? I mean, I don't know who's still actually right wing, who's hanging in there with the Tory party, like one or two, but come on, seriously. You'd look at that surely and go, well, if the 18 point, because we only know after the result, but then it's too late. It's called first past the post, winner takes all. Does it make sense now? You'd look at that stat and go, if the 18.6 that belonged to the Conservative Party had voted reform, we'd have a reform seat. But do you want reform or Labour? Does that make sense, guys? I mean, ask yourselves the question. Do you want reform or do you want Labour? Now, we all know that in the end, we win. But it takes time to get there. Like, go back to what I said right at the start. If I could flick a switch right now and bring in a centre-right Tory government that was going to maintain the same level of deportations that Labour are currently doing, and they went after freedom of speech, two-tier policing, two-tier justice, every patriot, every socially conservative activist would 100% back that. And they're lying if they said they wouldn't. I'm done with the Tories. I don't want to know about the Tories. I'm done forever. Yeah, I know. Me too. Yeah, same page. You'd do it. I know you would. Because we're on the back foot, guys. We're absolutely desperate. A win is a win. But we are surrounded by far left threats. We're surrounded by so many different evils and layers of wickedness. We don't get to choose right now. But what we do get to do is unite. What we do get to do is work together to stop the communists and to stop any unholy alliance like your party and whatever Workers' Party of Britain does or doesn't do, etc., etc. I hope that makes some sense, guys. Again, no political leader that I know of does their own podcast and spends the time, sometimes very, very painfully so, explaining what needs to be explained and why it needs to be explained. Because if the Patriots deserve to understand where they stand right now. It's very simple. If we can unify, that the only way that is possible. We've tried everything else. It's through our faith. If we can do right by God, God will, I believe he'll reward us. That's my belief. If we do right by God, God will reward us. That is what we must focus on first, second, and third. In terms of our political strategy, the call from the Patriots to be united. When people create new right-wing parties, they don't care about unity, guys. They're dividing you. The creation of a new party is division, not unity. Rupert Lowe is going to start his own party. Rupert was with Reform and came in on Nigel's ticket. Rupert could have played ball with Nigel. Nigel is what we call type A personality. Nigel is a dominant. Nigel's the boss. Margaret Thatcher, Alex Ferguson, all these people, type A personalities. Rupert is type A personality, alpha, right? Not Rupert decided to start speaking as a right winger and to go really out there. And at that point, Nigel's membership base, the epicenter, right? They're pretty much liberal in orientation, would have gone absolutely mental. And then obviously Nigel had to get rid of them. Did Rupert play the game? Did he play ball? He came in on Nigel's ticket and then he was gone. And then a huge fuss was made afterwards. The reality is that Rupert may well start his new party. And if he does that, it's clear Ben Habib is on record as saying that I'm pretty sure, anyway, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he said he'll fold Advance into Rupert's party. Now, Patriots, this is very stressful for me. Can you imagine if he doesn't? Can you imagine if he doesn't? I'm pretty sure he said that he's going to fold it into Rupert's new party. But what if he doesn't? Because we don't know what the policy, we don't know what Advance's policies are yet. We don't know what Rupert's policy, he hasn't even started a party yet. We don't have time for any of this. So I've explained very, very in detail for the mindset and the understanding in the heart and the mind with regards to the situation that we are confronted with. Once we're on the front foot and we have power, we begin mass deportations, we reinstate Christianity back into the heart of government. But until then, even the likes of Reform don't have any real power. They don't. They're in the same position as the Greens, but the momentum behind the Greens is what we should all be watching, guys. Bigger picture stuff. We're going to get on. We're going to do. God's either going to reward us and look after us or he's not. If God wills it, etc. And thanks be to God. But it's the Greens you need to watch. Disgruntled Labour voters, Labour falling apart, extremists, your party, takes 5, 10, 15 years to get off the ground, etc. Green. These are the people. It is short-sighted to focus on anything else in terms of threats close to us and further away. Political strategy-wise, it is the Greens that we must watch because we cannot allow communists power in Britain. You think it's bad under the Tories, then you hated Labour. You think it's bad under Labour, you get the Greens policies. They'll open the borders, guys. They'll open the borders. They'll have signs saying, come, if you're a criminal, a rapist, a murderer, if you're here to spread the Islamic Caliphate, they'll have signs saying, come in. And then you'll wish you had Labour. That's the reality, Patriots. If you don't understand what we're dealing with, eventually you'll wish you had Labour. That's the threat that the Greens and the alliance on the left that's forming poses. No more ego from the people who suffer with the egocentric arrogance on the right. Just the fists have got to come down and you've got to start seeing the bigger picture. And you can't do that if you're driven by ego, if you're driven by money, if you're driven by anger. You can't see it. Strategy goes out the window because it's all based on emotion. It's no good. It's no good for us, guys, and it's no good for the country. Let me first just say, please share this. This is very important, especially the last half an hour or so, guys. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you so much for watching tonight, guys. I hope it's been useful. I very much look forward to doing this again with you on Wednesday next week. Please keep the faith, stay faithful, and keep the hope up. And refer UKIP, ukip.org. Put it in people's faces, family, friends, colleagues, associates, in your parishes, etc. Whenever you can, ukip.org. Go to the join us page. 10 minutes later, you're joined up. You don't like it after a month? You don't like it after a year? Okay, fine. You're free to leave. But get behind the party. Get behind the party and then actually consider standing for the party as well. Just like what's happening in Gorton and Denton right now. That could be you. And that could be you winning your seat as well. Those are the realities. Become a member, apply to become a candidate, fight for your constituents, win the election, get yourself into the Houses of Parliament. This is the goal, to fill the Houses of Parliament with people who are either themselves Christian or supporters of the faith who want to begin mass deportations. There's no overnight fix, Patriots, to Britain. Not only is there no overnight fix, but we also have an emerging communist threat that is a very, very significant political animal. And at your peril should you choose to ignore that. I'll leave you with that thought. God bless you all. And thank you so much for being with me tonight.